Welcome into another edition of Curator's Corner here inside the Buffalo Bisons Hall of Fame room. Joining us once again is the curator of the Hall of Fame room, John Boutet. And John, today we'll talk about mascots and some of the different characters, if you will, from around the ballpark for many years. Folks love coming out and love seeing so many of the iconic mascots here, and just a couple examples of it today.
Yeah, we have some great examples of those people you spoke of. One of them is the Earl of Bud. Earl is not here anymore. He left a few years ago, but Earl is one of those characters that everybody remembers Earl from the rock pile or the early days here at Pilot Field. And we have a number of items that he left behind for us, and we brought those out. One, his famous white tuxedo that we still have on display, and here's a picture of Earl using it. And we also have his sneakers. And when he came back in 2012 for the All-Star game, the International League All-Star game was here, and I met up with him, and I said, Earl, we need one thing for the Hall of Fame from you. And he said, what's that? I said, we'd like to have your sneakers. So he goes, you want my sneakers? And I said, yeah, we'd love to have your sneakers. He goes, okay. He took his sneakers off, signed them for us, and we have them.
I think he's one of those people that because he isn't around anymore, the myth and the wonder of how the Earl is these days builds year after year.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions. People come in asking, how's Earl doing? Have you talked with Earl? I haven't talked with him in probably a couple of years, but last I heard he's living in Tennessee and he's living a great life, and he still remembers his days with the Bisons very fondly. And the Sabres, by the way.
Yeah, folks probably remember him dancing at the odd through the aisles and on the dugout here, and he got a chance to do that a couple times in recent memory.
He did, yeah, and he always loves to come back. It's always a fun time to have the fans get to see him again, and he gets to catch up with the old fans.
And one of the mascots that folks always come and love to get their pictures with or take a selfie with is Buster Bison, and you have one of his uniforms here today.
Yeah, Buster, iconic figure in Bison history. Little known fact, the first sighting of Buster was in 1965 when they used him for the covers of the programs. The game day programs was a dressed up Buffalo Bison, and so that dates back to 1965. In reality, it started in 1983. 83 is when the first instance of having him here in the crowd at the rock pile came in 1983 when Robert Rich bought the team. And one of the first things he did was get Mike Bellani, who was in charge of that back in the day. He says, we need a mascot. So they came up with Buster, and they hired somebody to come around and be Buster Bison, and he's been with us since 1983.
And early on, just like the jersey behind us, the year corresponded with the number on Buster's jersey, but now it's focused in on one singular number that folks will see year after year.
Yeah, a number of years ago, they started giving Buster the number 83 in memory of the year he started. So he wears 83 just every time now. But back in the early days of Buster, he would use the different year, 83, 84, 85, whatever year it was, and that was his number. So we're lucky to have his 1991 jersey here, who was donated to us by a great friend of Buffalo baseball, Frank Cleary.
And Frank, it took almost probably a small team to get him into that jersey. There's a zipper on the back. Yeah. The sides are sewn into the sleeves as well. So it wasn't that easy. No, they had to retrofit the jersey to trying to get it in, and boy was it hot. I remember him telling me how hot he was inside those. He'd lose probably 10 pounds a game dancing around and things like that on the dugout. So all that is all real, and they just assembled it right here in Buffalo, New York, and gave him a jersey and gave him a hat and said, go man, go. And I think one thing folks might not realize is Buster always didn't have a middle initial. That's something that sort of came along in the history of Buster.
Yeah, when it started out, they said he has to have a middle initial. What can we call him? And his brother Peter, who's an umpire here in Buffalo, New York, Peter was the one that recommended T, Buster the Bison. So he was Buster T. Bison from that day on.
And joining the Earl of Bud's iconic sneakers here is another fan favorite. Conehead actually gave you one of his cones?
He did, yeah. Tommy sets up shop right outside our Hall of Fame many a game, and you hear him screaming out, his cold beer, and if you get one warm from me, it's free. So I went to Tommy and I said, Tommy, we got to have something of you. What do you have? And he says, I can bring you one of my game-used cones. So he did. He brought in one of his cones and he gave it to us. And I said, well, now you have to sign it. You got to sign your memorabilia. So we had him sign it, and we have it right here.
And I don't know if people would have known that Conehead's worn the same number ever since he's taken over that moniker, and it does hold significance.
He's been selling beer here for the Bisons since 1979, and he made that number 79 his. Just like Buster made 83 his is 79. So not a lot of people know what that 79 stands for, but now you do.
And I think folks, when they come to the ball games, love seeing Buster, love seeing Chip and Conehead. So they can always learn something new when they come into the Hall of Fame room.
Yeah, you can't ask Buster because he can't talk. So I mean, if you need to find out about Buster, you come in here. We'll fill you in on all his goings and doings.
You can come into the Buffalo Bisons Hall of Fame room an hour before first pitch here inside of Coca-Cola Field. For John Boutet, I'm Pat Malacaro with another edition of Curator's Corner.